guys.
Just
It's
hitting
day
on.
4.
We're not going yet. Oh, you're live. Sorry.
Well, it's I lost the Zoom when I clicked on the Google,
Did you not bring
so I
another
lost all
phone?
audio. Say that again.
Did you not bring another phone?
Oh, that's why you told me to do that.
Yep.
With the afternoon she's had, I'm impressed that she remembered.
I gotta find it. Hold
Yeah, I
on,
can't blame her.
everybody. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna have to probably.
We're live on Facebook, by the way.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Ty. Okay, here we go. All right. So Ty, let me understand you correctly. I can hang
So
up
one
Zoom.
phone's your camera, and then one phone's your microphone.
Okay. So this one that I'm on right now isn't connected to my thing. So I'm going to join the Google, and then I'll come in Zoom on the other phone.
Yep, Zoom's going to be your audio,
Yeah.
and Google's going to be the camera.
Zoom is the audio, and Zoom is the camera. So so stay right here. I'm confused.
Google is the camera.
Okay. And Zoom is the audio.
I just sent you a new link on
Okay.
Slack.
My audio is not like, I'm confused how to do that because these are connected to my personal phone and this is the stall high phone. So which
I
one
don't
needs
need
to be on
audio on
Google?
your camera. Camera doesn't need audio.
Okay, then let me see if I can figure this out. Y'all get things rolling and I'll be back.
All right.
You ready, Sherry?
Yeah, we're going to let them in.
All right, here we go.
All right. As everyone started coming
Yes,
in, I
ma'am.
see. Are you good, Ty?
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're rocking and rolling, and we've got Kendra here with us, who is rolling as well. She's on the road. We're super excited to be back on day 4. I've been pumped about this clinic for about 3 weeks now when we finally inked it all out, and I think it is turning out fabulously. We love the horse work that's being done. We did hear that there was some questions on the horse work that was for today, and that was for the eye tracking. And so what we're really trying to dive into is for those of us,
Echoing.
Ty, you're not muted. We can hear you. Is for those of you that are like me, I keep joking that I'm going to be the poster child for the mental case for stall high because I think I've experienced almost every single one of these. Is I have come out of my runs out of breath. I've come out not remembering half of my runs. Where I blanked out, and I used to jokingly call them blonde moments. And so that's what this eye tracking is helping us narrow down and figure out is who else is having those. And if you're struggling with doing that exercise and tracking with your eyes, then you're going to have those same problems that I did. And I won't be the lonely poster child for stall high on these mental problems, is I think I'm going to have a nice crowd with me. So with all of that said, that is what we are focusing in on and learning about this new word. Oh, you said you're a blonde, and I jokingly used to call them my blonde moments. And as you can say, especially after today, I don't even have grays, but I'm certainly not a blonde. But I did experience blonde moments during my barrel run, and that's what this work. And I'm already seeing changes in my runs and coming out and being more present in them and remembering more of them. I don't come out of breath anymore. You would have thought I physically ran that run because I was coming out huffing and a puffing because I would just say non-technical terms here, Leanna, I was totally out of whack. I was the hot mess express. So
sure. All been there.
Exactly. And we're all learning together. And yes, Michelle, you were out of breath too. And I think blondes do get a bad rap. I'm sorry. So that was always my joke is that, I was just wasn't there, wasn't present. And now I'm learning and working and we've been doing eye exercises. And so now I'm seeing improvements. And so I was able to do that exercise, but I will tell you, probably even 2 months ago, I would not have been able to complete it. I would have been jumping. There would have been some issues there. So, Kendra, while we got you for a little while, is there anything that you want to add, or did we just lose her? I think we lost her.
I don't see her.
Yeah, I think we did lose her. She was driving, so she might have dropped off. And so she has
I'm
left.
back.
There she is. I know she's trying to drive and keep up with 2 phones right now, and had a very
That was
interesting
not
day.
working. Two phones was too much, and it does seem like we have a overlay going. Hats off to Ty, everyone behind the camera, moderating, getting all of this organized and ready to go. I'm excited. I'm excited about tonight because we get to talk about the history of attunement. How did it begin? What does that word even mean? And we've got some really cool visuals showing the difference between riding in attunement and out of attunement. And Sherry, I can testify as well. I've been riding horses my whole life and have been very blessed and very fortunate to be successful with my horses. I've made a good living with them. I didn't know what I didn't know until I met Michael and Leanna. So you girls take it away. I'm here to chime in as needed. I'm going to turn my camera off because I'm driving into the sun, and I'm excited to get going. Where do we want to start tonight?
Yes, and equally excited too, as I said, that coming in and stumbling across Stall High and the things that we've learned, and this funny term of attunement. Leanna, can you tell us how you and Michael came up with why that word and what does it mean?
Well, that's a great question. Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. We're almost to the weekend. I know, right? So, first of all, I'm going to have everyone take a deep sigh. How many of you can sigh on command?
Me.
Okay, that's a good thing. So
I
the
did.
reason why I'm having everybody, and I want everybody to take deep sighs throughout this talk, is because when we sigh, that activates our rest and digest part of our nervous system. So that's why whenever we're under stress or whenever we're frustrated, and sometimes everybody goes, oh, like that, it's our body trying to regulate. But when we understand that, it's when we take that sigh, it activates our parasympathetic rest and digest. It moves us out of our stress responses of the brain and the body. The powerful thing about understanding that is when we can use it intentionally. So oftentimes our body will take the sigh because it needs it. What we would like to do is to meet our body with those sighs throughout the day so that we have that sense of connectivity. So we can meet it before it's needed, if you will, right? Because oftentimes if you need it, we might be a little bit behind the 8 ball, but if we go ahead and just sigh, it activates the lower part of the diaphragm, activates our parasympathetic rest and digest nervous system. And again, when we activate our lower part of the diaphragm, remember, it turns this part of our brain on, our personality, our higher level reasoning. This is our capacity to regulate. And so when you understand how these movements can affect how our brain and our bodies connect, it really does empower us. And again, this is the comeback challenge, right? So we are looking for confidence. We are looking for that sense of empowerment. The thing about it is that who knew when you came here that we'd be talking about your nervous system, that your nervous system is the key to the confidence. It is the path to the empowerment. It is the path to hope. It isn't about, again, I'm going to say how we ended last night. It isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters. And that is so key, right? And again, there's lots of drills out there. You hear us in Half Second Faster saying it's not about a drill. One interesting thing is the reason why we came up with that is there's an amazing teacher up in Portland, Oregon, and she's written a whole series on worksheets don't grow new dendrites. And the reason why she developed that is because she was working with kids who had developmental delays. And she was like, we just keep giving them more worksheets, more worksheets, more worksheets. And she finally started studying the neuroscience of it. And she's like, that's not growing anything new in the brain with the connectivity. It's just stressing their nervous systems out by doing that. And she understood that if you get the child moving, that you could help them learn more by moving while they're learning, by crossing their midline so that they take what they're learning and impart it into the most powerful form of memory through movement, right? And so that's the whole concept of doing drills won't necessarily transform your horse. Again, everything has its time and place, but we're talking about if this is our comeback, our nervous system is the bridge to that comeback.
Well,
So,
can I chime in on that real quick?
yes,
Because
please.
watching their horse work, I'm really proud of the riders who are starting to get it. Like they're starting to put two and attunement together, two and two. Like, oh, whoa. I thought last night was phenomenal. I personally have some glitches when I try to visually track a figure eight with my eyes. Now I understand that's an indicator that my central nervous system has some more healing to do. Okay, let's get it done. I don't want to take that to my horses, and I don't want to drive across the country again to Reno, Nevada or Cheyenne, Wyoming, or wherever I'm, wanting to go compete. It costs so much money to do it at that level or at any level. Just fuel alone, guys. I don't want to do that and not know that I am able to bring the best of my ability to the table, to the saddle for my horses. Like, are y'all starting to connect the dots here? If it's us and our opportunity to improve as riders, think about how much better that makes it for the horse. And now I think you can see why we're so passionate about bringing this new information, because we're being set free from the old way of thinking and the old way of doing things. We're really excited to set other people and their horses free too, because I think Leanna horses have really been very tolerant of us and our lack of knowledge over the decades.
Yeah.
It's really pretty disturbing when you see what a lot of them have to go through. So I'm going to disagree that drills have a time and a place. I will never do them again now that I know what I know. I'm very, very thankful for the people here with open eyes and open ears and open minds to receive. Back to you. Keep going.
Well, so that speaks to how we track. So the reason why we want to work with our eye tracking is because we understand that the optic nerve goes right through the hippocampus and the amygdala, which is our memory and our emotions. I mean, the optic nerve goes straight through, and it goes to the back part of our brain, which is our sensory motor cortex, which controls our movement. And it's also connected to millions of other parts of the brain. The optic nerve is one of those nerves that is so integral through so much processing. Again, that's how we take in a majority of our world is how we see things, how we feel things, our kinesthetic. And again, that's all part of attunement. The capacity for me to attune, which means for me to assess someone else, like the inner world of myself and the relationship I establish with my horse, which you can also think of attunement as feel, is dependent on how accurate and how tuned in my nervous system is, my vestibular system, my capacity to keep my sense of balance. Or if my horse moves, can I rebalance myself in a way that is efficient and without adding a ton of weight to my horse? It's my proprioception. My proprioception is information that's sent from my joints and my muscles to my brain because it maps out where I am in space. That's important. That's actually proprioception, and interoception is what we call the core of developing our identity. So you have to think that if we don't feel sure-footed, notice how many words we use, like, oh, I'm not feeling so sure-footed. Well, that's both a metaphor, but it's also, if we don't feel sure-footed on the ground, we're not going to have access to our confidence. Our self-esteem will kind of take a hit because we're having to constantly check our steps. Again, it's that fear of kind of falling, right? But if our proprioceptive system, our vestibular system, our capacity to track smoothly, if that is engaged, then that means that everything else in our body is going to trust that we'll be able to navigate whatever challenge is ahead of us. And that's both physical and that's both emotional as well. So the brain and the body are always going to operate in the physical and the emotional. That's good news because it means that when we move our physical bodies, we affect our emotions, right? And that's how we move and we live, and we begin to develop the concept of interoception, proprioception. And with the eye tracking, how many of you guys, what was Sherry, can you tell me the feedback from the homework from last night? What everybody was noticing or what the general sense was?
Oh, I didn't look at that one. Did you, Kendra?
Oh, girl, I did. That is good. I mean, our riders are getting it. I loved it. We have some people, I think it's interesting to see a lot of the people this week who are saying like, hey, you know, my respiratory is actually pretty good, or my feet feel stable, my hips feel loose. Those are riders who've already taken the attunement class. There are other riders coming in saying, you know, surprisingly, it wasn't as good as I thought, or I did a little better on this, but I'm starting to open my eyes that maybe it's not just my horse. This does answer a lot of questions. Am I reading y'all correctly? Y'all drop it in the comments.
Well, there was a comment
Is this making
earlier.
a lot of sense?
Somebody dropped it in the comments earlier that even when they were doing the sighing, that their dog started getting nervous and was on alert. So if your dog is doing that, what do you think?
Can you say that again?
There was somebody that dropped it in the comments earlier that when you told us to let out a big sigh and what it was doing for us, their dog got alerted, like was concerned for this person. So that just made me think of when I was describing this program to my husband, who's not a horse person, he immediately goes like, Avatar, you plug it into your horse. And I'm like, what? I didn't watch Avatar. And, you know, and it's like, we are connected. And I know we talk about that more. And that's how my horse responds when I'm anxious.
Well, so, Leanna,
yes.
It's hope. I hear riders in the horse work saying, this feels good to know it's not just me. It's not time to quit. Like all of these things that have just not added up and not made sense. And we've been trying to bang it, clang it, tape it, paste it, you know, chain it all together. There's a reason why it hasn't been working, because people haven't understood. We haven't been privy to this information before. We are the missing link, which means we can fill that gap now. We can fill the void for our horses instead of riding in perpetual confusion or at a disadvantage or riding in friction with them. It's a very fascinating process to learn, and it's exciting that we have new people here this week. This is literally their first test ride with Stallhide. They're starting to experience this and, you know, have these kind of thoughts for the first time. It's a beautiful life to realize you can have this big of an impact on your horse. Obviously, we all love our horses, or we wouldn't be here.
No, that's beautifully said. And so here's what happens with our eye tracking. And again, I'll talk about it in the educational setting, and then I'll take it to us as adults, is that when the eyes don't track, so let's say you're working with a child who has dyslexia, or who has trouble with reading comprehension, being able to comprehend what they read. One of the very first things that we do is we look at their eye tracking, because if they're tracking like this, so my eyes are going to follow my fingers here, and I'm doing this, and then my eyes wobble, or they get tense or stressed, right? Or they reset, that means that as a child is reading that line, that's what their eye is doing. It's constantly getting lost in the order of how they're reading. It's constantly having to reorient back to that same place in the sentence where everybody else is. Now, what does that mean? That means that their brain is having to expend more energy to do a task that might take the other student, if their eyes are tracking well, because they've had really good eye development, then, and by the way, stress and trauma affects how how our eyes track, because it's an indicator of the state of our nervous system. So again, they're going to be constantly trying to find their place again. They're going to be expending a ton more energy just to keep up, right? And that's just our visual system. Then you talk about their primitive reflexes, and then you talk their capacity to cross the midline, all those kinds of things. Now, what happens as we get to be adults is that we are having to, especially if you're on a horse, you're having to orient several different places in the arena. And as you shape your body, that means that the eyes need to be differentiated from the head and the neck, and the head and the neck from the body. So one quick way that we can kind of assess it, and we're looking for micro movements here. We're old enough that we're able to actually override this. But if you were to put your hands out like this, and just kind of, you can see where my hands are. And if I were to just slowly move and with my eyes track over here, move here, my shoulder goes with my neck like this automatically. I can feel that micro movement, right? And if I go to the other side, actually my hands don't move as much. This arm doesn't go towards the back, my back wall. What does that mean? It means something on my right side needs to be unwound, because when I move my head and neck, this shoulder and this arm isn't differentiated from my vision and how I'm moving my head and neck. Again, why is that important? Well, it's important when seconds count. Because if I'm going, does that make sense, Kendra?
Oh, yes. And I'm just going to be like, as the horse's advocate, it matters a whole lot to a horse, because they've been blamed for shoulder problems for about 60 years. And we've got a lot of blown up barrel horses. And like our friend Kelly Crowley says, she's about tired of seeing blown up barrel horses. This is our chance to do something for all horses, guys. Everybody listening here live right now, this moment. This means so much more to us than today's clinic. We are on a mission. This is becoming a crusade, a revolution to educate riders and call everyone up to a higher skill level and a higher understanding level. And I think, Leanna, tonight you're going to talk about compassion. And that's not a word we hear very often in videos or barrel racing.
That's right. We're still right.
Practical lesson in that.
Yes, well, we're still right now in our visual system, right? So what we want to do is, again, and so I would give people some tools, right? Because we've stressed our visual system out. Even by doing this, people are like, well, that didn't cause me any stress. I'm not talking about emotional stress. I'm talking about physiological stress. So we talk about trigger loading, right? Like trigger loading is that the brain just goes, I have to work harder to do that. If you want me to have differentiation in my body, I have to work a little harder. And so that over time, right, that sense of stress, the brain will start putting a story to that sense of physiological and somatic stress. And then the brain is going to be like, well, you must not be confident. Well, is everything okay? You're right. It's that part of the brain that's going to make up the story. And when really, in all honesty, it's if we can attune our nervous system. And again, attunement, and I'm going to go back to a simple definition of it. It's our capacity to accurately sense and respond. I sense something, I respond to something. But in order to sense and respond accurately, I have to make sure, again, that my visual field, my fascia, and we learn about that in future conversations, but that all of my nervous system, proprioception, that I'm sending accurate signals from the joints of my body as they move to my brain, so that I can coordinate movement, that I can easily cross my midline of my body while opening up my field of vision. All of that opens my senses to be able to send and receive information more efficiently and with a sense of ease. Otherwise, I'm going to have to work real hard to tune in, right? And that's something that having to work really hard stresses you out, and it stresses the horse out. So again, capacity to accurately. Go ahead.
In the past, you've said that like first responders that are in stressful jobs, and I saw a comment from somebody earlier that says they are older. I'm not sure what that meant, but they have a lot more trauma to work through because they've been through a lot more. That somebody younger, this might be a little bit easier and not have to work through as much. But especially, I thought too, it was really eye-opening when you said, if you're a paramedic, a firefighter, a police officer, that you've been subjected, I don't want to say subjected, maybe that's the wrong word. You've been exposed to more things than somebody that doesn't have that type of job.
Oh, absolutely. And again, it's what we're taking into our senses. The good news about that is that when our nervous system is regulated, it really does have a lot of capacity to deal with past trauma. Because when we're in the ventral part of our nervous system, the capacity to create differentiation between the past, the present, and the future increases. What happens again when there's unresolved trauma and it's stuck in our nervous system? What happens is that our nervous system or our brain really starts going, it starts hopping between all timelines, past, present, future, past, future, present, past, and it gets disoriented, right? But when our nervous system is regulated, we have a clear differentiation between that was the past, this is the present. And because I feel safe in the present, I'm okay to trust the future. But again, that's not going to happen just through logic. That happens because we have to attend to our nervous system. And with that being said, part of that is working with that sense of, and everybody's going to take that quiz tonight, is that the quickest way we know to rewire the brain, right, is going to be through movement, presence, attunement, as well as understanding that if we are in critical mode, criticize ourselves. Criticism activates what we talked about last night, the default mode network. That's the rumination. That's where we get stuck in a cycle. Curiosity, compassion unlocks the other parts of the brain that are about connection and safety. So that's why, in this work, we work with the body, but we also work with understanding how we reframe things. And the reason being is that we know that the brain, if it's in critical mode, we know that it's going to seek safety by being trying to protect ourselves. If we're in compassion and curiosity, then we start accessing the parts of the brain that sees possibility, and we access the right side of the brain.
And for the people that,
Yeah.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
So for the people that weren't here maybe Monday, can you give your definition of trauma? Because this is when we first started talking about it. I'm like, some of our riders, they've been through some stuff with their horses that are not going to view it as trauma. It's just, get back on, you've been bucked off, suck it up, cowgirl up, toughen up, Can you help them understand when you say trauma, it doesn't necessarily mean, earth shattering, car accident, things
absolutely.
like that level.
Right. There's single incident traumas, and those are your traumatic events. And then there's the big T, which are the big events, big T, and then there's the small T. And those small T's are our injury history. All the small shocks that the body's had to take, all the hits that the body has had to take, all the emotional stressors of life transitions that we've had to go through in life, that we've done a good job of getting through, but has been actually stacking up in the body, right? That's where it's affected our sleep, it's affected our outlook in life. It's harder to see possibilities because our brain is stuck in survival protection mode. And so again, there's big T, which are the big traumas in life, the big accidents, like you said, the car accident, a bad horse wreck. But again, what's interesting is that what happens is that the determining factor of if a trauma, whether it's big T or little t, is going to stay stuck in the body, isn't the event itself. It's how your inner world and your nervous system has interpreted that event and how it's taken it in. And we know that if our visual system is compromised and stressed, if our vestibular system, our sense of orient or our ability to orient is under stress, if our capacity to be able to move our body independently is compromised, that automatically puts us in a stressed state. And again, the brain will then put a story to it. And the brain will typically put a story to it that puts us in that hypervigilant, like we have to look for where the potential dangers are. And that then puts us over into our left brain, and that gets us further away from our right brain and our body, which are the two places that can actually resolve that stress, and it can resolve unresolved experiences that we've had in life, which is so powerful. And again, these conversations are going to be happening more and more here at Stall High, and I'm so thankful that people are here willing to engage in these kinds of conversations because I think again it frees us up to even know that this comeback is possible. Because you have to first know something is possible and perceive it as
Yes.
possible before you go after it.
Well, I'd love to call in somebody, and I'm going to catch her totally off guard, in true Kendra style, that when they're spontaneous, they're more real. So Kelly Crowley, can you unmute? Because you had an interesting ride. I think it was last year, and you had a session with Leanna.
Yes, I did.
Could you mind sharing your story?
Sure. Yeah, you did catch me off guard. I'm in here in the barn in my natural habitat.
We all can connect and relate to that.
Yeah, right. Um, so yeah, I was in pro rodeo and I didn't realize that before Leanna walked me through it. So long story short, I was way more affected by some things that had gone on and some past actual what I now would say is trauma, but more of like social expectation and like my interpretation of it and my own viewed failures and that whole can of worms. But so I went out and felt really prepared, I thought, and was completely blindsided by how in the moment I completely came unraveled and really lost feeling of like my lower half of my body and couldn't get it back and got stuck in that throughout my run, feeling it unravel. And the harder I tried to get it back in that moment, the more I was losing it. And like really the most panicked I'd really have ever felt in a run. And of course, on a very big stage on the Cowboy Channel at a performance at what is essentially one of our hometown rodeos, a big time rodeo where all these big names come, and kind of like felt like I was blowing my shot to even do decently. And then running home, just basically trying to hold on for dear life and quite frankly failing at that. My horse stopped when I said whoa and darted. We had a very small alleyway to run out of that's probably, like the size of this barn aisle, that goes into a very dark hole. And we don't get to practice for that anywhere. And so I was apprehensive about it. But I had practiced it and thought that we were okay. But at that point, I did not have any regulation left. And my horse stopped when I said, whoa, ducked to the side because she's a cutting horse bloodlines and she's very quick that way. And I came off, landed on my butt in front of everybody and was very much exposed, which was what I needed. But thank God for Leanna, because that, I picked myself up. I was like, well, I can't hide from this. I'm okay. But inside, I don't feel okay. Walked out and I thought, I have masterclass next week and we're going to work through this. And we did. So Leanna, in class that week, it came out and we were kind of dissecting my run and she was watching me talk about it and asked, what happened the day before or that morning. Let's go back to that morning. And as I was talking about how I kind of felt, a little bit almost cocky about riding my horse around in the arena bareback, and people from my past who had judged me and different situations, kind of feeling like I was showing off a little bit. And but she saw it in me talking about it. She saw my jaw lock up and she saw what I didn't see. And that she said, in that moment, did you feel watched? And I just, like, the floodgate of emotion opened and I was like, there it is. Like, exactly. And she walked me and the whole class who was probably crying with us. We all did a breathing exercise together and it was a very pivotal moment, and continues to be a very pivotal moment for me in my life. And that it changed me forever, for the better. So I thank you, Leanna, for that.
No, like you said, so thank you for sharing that because we learn and grow through community. There is something about when we share that story within this sense of community who's there to support you, that allows us to take a deeper look at to what's happening underneath the content, is what I call it. Like, this is the content, that's the run, right? And we're looking at the horse and we're looking at ourselves. But when you go underneath it and ask yourself, what was the undercurrent? And it was the concept of being watched, which then puts the nervous system. So the brain goes, yep, we're being watched. And so the body goes, how do I protect myself? And that's when the body starts to go into conservation mode. So we might not have access to our fullest sense of vision, right? Our breath begins to become a little bit more shallow, which each and of itself, if that one thing were to happen, yes, our bodies can compensate and adapt. And I'm going to use the word adapt and not compensate for good reasons, but it can adapt. But when all of those things begin to happen, that's when the body goes, it's going to be really hard for me to keep and find my balance. And if something in my visual field comes too quickly, because remember, you're also on a horse, and if that comes too quickly and I wasn't expecting it, that's going to throw my vestibular system off. And then my proprioception system is going to go, well, now I've lost where I am in space, and off I go. It's going to cause that cascade of physiological responses. But the moment we worked with that theme of I'm being watched, and we allowed, because an emotion, you guys, here's the thing, an emotion, the physiology of an emotion only lasts a maximum 90 seconds. That's neuroscience. That's Dr. Jill Bolt Taylor, I think is her last name. 90 seconds is how long the emotion lasts. But if we cut that off, right, that emotion can get really stuck. And that's when we get into our default mode network. And that's where the perseverating happens. And then there's no action in moving forward. But the moment Kelly was able to leave her left brain and go into her right brain and body, she actually released and allowed that experience to finally resolve, because you said something so profound as you got up and you were like, I'm okay on the outside, but I'm not okay on the inside.
And because you were willing to share there, as you said, I think the rest of the group was in tears, and I believe partially because they could relate. And I was one of them, because I've been put on the ground by a horse that, that was very humbling to me. And so to figure out the effect that was still having on me was something that I had never considered before. And that's why I was asking Leanna to kind of talk about trauma, because it also is the pressure that we put on ourselves, because we want to prove that, we belong out there, and, and those types of things, or our families put on us, is all a factor that I had never considered. And because Kelly was so vulnerable, and I think she's not the only one in the group. I think we've all had a session or two. Although Kelly wins the award because hers was on TV. Mine wasn't that big.
You're welcome.
So, but I love and appreciate this group, because, and even you had posted it on Facebook, and that was one of the things that was so profound about this community, is not one person came in and said, well, Kelly, you should have done this, or Kelly, you should have done that. It was, what was the response you got, Kelly? I'm going to let you describe that.
Oh my gosh. The response I got from this community was actually, it might make me cry just talking about it, but just so positive, and the kind things and the uplifting things that people were saying, and calling me an inspiration. It was really humbling, and it still is. And I just sometimes, I made the video for we did a trauma or struggle to triumph challenge at the end of the year, and I shared that in that video, and I've shared it again since then, because it feels like that happened to me for a reason, to help others. And and it's not the first time that I've hit the ground, and I'm sure it won't be the last, because that's just kind of the nature of the game, and none of us perfect. So, but being okay with that now, I was never okay with that before, but knowing that I have a place that is it's a safe place here,
So, and notice
Yeah.
how your hand right there. See, because now the safe place is your protection. It's not your body having to stay in hypervigilance. When you
Mhm.
know you have a safe place and your body is your home, that's how you know you're in a responsive mode versus a reactive mode.
Yeah.
That piece right there. That's the resilience. When you understand that piece, it's like, yeah, a challenge. We know we're in a challenging field. It's going to come. But I know where I can find true safety and connection. When then the body goes, thank God you don't have to rely on my primitive reflexes and all my, my primitive reactions to keep you safe. That's right. And knowing that means that you take a different, your confidence is now not just like a mental confidence. Your confidence is true biophysiological confidence. And I'm going to take biophysiological confidence all day, every day
Oh yeah.
over a mental confidence, because that's the truest sense of I can come back and orient back to my baseline of regulation. And people were asking, like, how do you get over that? Well, for you, what happened was in her memory network, that one experience, it changed. How the memory was stored changed. So what we know is that a negative experience is immediately registered in the brain as survival. Positive experiences, though, take 5 to 10 to 20 seconds for them to register in the emotional memory. So I will say that again. A negative experience is registered immediately. Positive experiences take 5, 10, 20 seconds to register in the emotional brain. Why is that? We are wired for safety, right? So here's why that is so important. Because for her, the response that she was missing was that sense of support right there in that moment. And what was provided during that time in class was that she was able to feel, to take in the good, to feel that sense of support, to hear that sense of support, to see that sense of support. And what happened is in her memory network is that memory still existed, but what came alongside of it was a different experience. And that experience coupled with that original memory, therefore, it now registers in her brain as actually a place of inspiration and resilience instead of, I feel bad and embarrassed. Completely changed how that memory is stored, which means now whenever her brain has to quickly scan for, like, how can I get through the next challenge? Now her brain, when it scans, it's going to remember that piece, and that's going to add to her resilience. So that's the neuroscience of what happened in that moment for her. That's why she's able to now say, I know that in the future, when I take a fall, I know how I'm going to be met. Boom, that's resilience. But we are an experience-based brain. We only learn and grow through experiences. And that was the missing experience that she needed. And we were also able to help her with the balance of her horse through those one-on-one coaching sessions, right? And she's built that sense of biophysiological trust with her horse through her movement patterns and through her horse's movement patterns. And so again, that increases our sense of resiliency, which then means that we can face challenges with a lower degree of stress. And notice I say not without stress, because stress is part of our world, but with a lower degree of stress. That's what we're looking for.
So Leanna, is it fair to, this is a question that if Kelly didn't have the foundation of being in the program, and you talk about the onion and how many layers, would it have been that quick of a conversation or that easy to I don't want to say fix, but to process and deal with? How do you explain that?
Oh, I think Kelly, so Kelly is she's going to put on a brave face and keep going. And she almost did it that day in class until we slowed it down. And I said, wait a minute. Her eyes were blinking real fast. Her jaw started to tense up. And I'm like, there's something there. Hold up. And those were what we call the somatic markers. It's that somatic part of your body going, nope, something's not quite right. And the good news is that we don't have to dissect everything that's not right. What we can do is help our nervous system regulate, have a positive experience that pulls it into that memory. It couples together and it is stored very differently, which is so powerful. And that's called memory reconsolidation work, by the way, in the field of neuroscience. We're reconsolidating memories. So they're not stored as stressful or as overwhelming. They are stored as experiences that we learn from and that we've taken wisdom from.
Thank you, Kelly, for sharing. We love you. You're the best.
Thank you.
I'm happy to share it. So I'll share it till everybody gets tired of hearing about it, and then I'll still share it. But I will just add to say that, like, I put it in the comments, but I'm writing my whole life, and be like, I'm confident to a point, but not believing myself when I said I'm confident until I went through this. Like, now I feel like the confidence is like in me on a cellular level, and I'm not like the overly cocky
Yeah.
thinking, oh, I'm just great and indestructible. Like, oh, I'm still not perfect, but I have the confidence, and it just freed me from so much judgment that was in my way, that a lot of it I put there in my own mind. But it freed me from all of that. And
Oh, it's a
so
beautiful
I'll
thing.
be forever grateful.
Oh, it's beautiful. And that sense of internal support. So the thing about it is, and we call it the internalized sense, meaning that the more of these kind of conversations that we get to have, the more times we get to meet as community, through our mirror neuron system, which means what I see, I take in. I actually begin to carry an internalized sense of community and safety with me, even if you're not accessible. And understanding that means that when you can carry that sense of support with you, your whole nervous system begins to relax, right? We have access to our diaphragm, which, by the way, I always talk about, we have more than one diaphragm. We have a diaphragm here, we have a diaphragm here, we have a diaphragm in our pelvis. Those are the kinds of things that, as you begin to study this, when you can have that sense of understanding how fearfully and wonderfully we are made, we get to trust in that process and allow those things to finally start working and moving in our favor, because our bodies are seeking safety and connection. We just have to sometimes we have to support it and show it the path to the safety and connection, which, again, if you're under stress, just know that you're going to be more in your left brain. The question I want you guys to ask yourselves tonight or tomorrow is, how do I move myself over into the right brain, into the body, right? That's going to always be my key. Very, very rarely now, if I'm under stress, do I ask, well, how do I need to think differently? It's going to be more of, how do I need to move? I need to access my right brain. So, like, for me, bilateral music, if you guys want to look that up, find some bilateral music, put some, headphones on at night. Bilateral music means that it's going to go in through one AirPod, and then it's going to go through the other, and it's going to go right, and it's going to go left, right, left, and that's going to get both sides of your hemisphere connected right here. So it's going to move you out of the stress part of the brain into here. So before I have to prepare for something, I often will listen to bilateral music, and I'll go kind of right or left with it. I'll start crossing my midline. I'll start getting my field of vision open, because I get really intense and really focused, and I've got to open that field of vision. If I need to open my field of vision, I'll work here in the back part of my occipital bone. And the occipital bone is just that bony part right here above your neck. And what you do is, just with the warmth of your fingers, you're going to work with your fascia. You're going to access that little bone right there, and you're going to pull, like, just gently kind of like slide to the right for 30 seconds. You're going to sigh, which we should have done a pre and post test with this. A pre and post test, by the way, would be seeing how much range of motion you have in your head and neck while you move your eyes. That would have been the pre-test. And then you're going to go, and then now you're going to go to, like, I'm going to go to my left and kind of like gently kind of slide my fingers to the left for 30 seconds. And notice where your eyes begin to want to go, because your eyes will be drawn to what's called a gaze spot, GAZE spot. And then you're going to do the same thing on the other side. You're going to take that bone right there, and you're just going to slide your hands. You can go to the left or right, whatever side you started on is fine. See, my spot for my eyes really wants to go down here to the left, which is right down here is feelings. This is auditory, and then we have visual field up here. But right now, my eyes are really focused here into the body sensations. It's kind of cool that our eyes can tell that information. And then you'll go to the other side for about 30 seconds, and then just begin to sigh.
Anybody else need this today? I know
Yeah.
I do. This is perfect timing. Just
Yeah.
out of curiosity, Leanna, what is high left? And I started yawning.
Oh, you're going through some visual memories from today.
Uh,
Yeah. Sometimes when we can't believe what we see, we're just like, what was that I had written on my paper? Boom, our eyes go up. What did she say? Boom, eyes go to the right or the left. I'm trying to remember what was said. How do you feel? How do I feel? Boom, eyes go down. And these are small micro movements, right? But again, where we place our eyes affects how we feel because it has to deal with the optic nerve. The optic nerve goes through our emotions and our memories. So anytime we can attend to those optic nerves, it allows us to, it's like your eyes go, wait, I can see a little differently. If it doesn't feel so hard to look to my left or to my right. But we need to know these things because our eyes and how we move our body helps guide our horse, our field of vision. They're tapping into. So when we open up our field of vision, it gives them permission to do the same as well. And that's the mirroring that happens through attunement because I have a sense of myself and my internal world. And it means I have more access to sense into my horse and their internal world. And I can be more responsive than reactive. And reaction is about protection. Responses means I can find my way to safety and connection, even if I take a fall, I know how to get back to safety and connection.
this is the beautiful part. This is where it gets super exciting and thrilling to be a part of, to be part of something that makes such a big transformation, such a big change, and such a big impact. Thank you, Leanna. Thank you, Kelly. Sherry, thank you too. Did y'all share data? I had to drop off for a minute and I'm back.
No, we didn't. I had one other question that I wanted to throw out there is I would love to ask the group, what is your first thought after you come out of your barrel run? What is it?
That's a great question.
Drop it in the comments. Because as we're talking about being compassionate on ourselves, this is an area, again, poster child over here, of things that I need to work on or I am working on and making progress that I'm super excited about. I stayed on. Used to be breathe. Wait until we get into attunement class. Glad that's over. I lived, appreciate my horse and praise her. That was fun. What happens? But most of these comments are more of I survived. It's over. There's not as many that are coming out celebrating. What should that be telling us, Leanna?
Oh, well, so that's just going to tell us we're a little bit more left brain shifted, right? And then again, that left brain shift is going to go into that default mode where we kind of go in a bit of a cycle. I mean, now here's the thing, after a run, legitimately, you're going to be like, I can't wait to see that, replay that. But you're just going to ask yourself, is it left brain thinking, which is, and I love how he says, praise, he took care of me. That's a beautiful one. We're just going to notice, are we more in our left brain or are we going to be in our right brain in our body? Are we taking those deep sighs? And, and petting your horse is the best because you're making that connection. But again, the thought, however you answered that, that's going to let you know, are you more left brain shifted, trying to analyze, trying to critique? Or is it the right brain, which is wow, what an experience. Let me connect with my horse. Let me just kind of take a moment for myself and my horse. I'm proud of what we did because we showed up, right? That's going to be the more of a signal that you are in your right brain and body. And then
And
you
I
can
think
go
that's
left side,
Yeah.
And go, okay, now I wanted to see the video. I want to see how we did.
Yeah, now good segue. There we got a couple of videos that we'd like to show. If Ty can pull up the first one. This should be that roan horse. So this is while we were on our trip in Idaho, and this lovely lady was so generous and so helpful to us. And she's got this beautiful horse, and we had asked her to get on and ride, and we were there to help her. And so for those of you that can see, there, it was a little dusty. It hadn't rained there much since we were there. What are you seeing? How would you describe this ride? Drop it in the comments.
You need to put it on the main screen share, Bear. It's not.
Oh, you can? Okay. Thanks, Ty. Ty's doing the driving. We just talked about right brain and left brain and how that can influence us. Do you think she's riding in her right brain or left brain? Somebody says stiffness. The horse doesn't seem to be paying too much attention to her and looks a little sore. No balance, very tense. And so she had been battling this horse, and so she was really open to feedback and you know, and I would agree. She was tense that day. You know, is that because we were there and she had just met us? That's, you know, I know it can influence my riding. All right, Ty, can you bring the next one up? And so next, Kendra got on this exact same horse. You know, Minutes actually asked her if she minded her riding her horse because she had been struggling with her, you know, just really felt like this horse was on the muscle. And we all, you know, when you hear that on the muscle, is that a good thing? Or what does that mean to you? And do you agree that this horse was on the muscle? Somebody says left brain, tension, horse is not coming under its midline. Does that change when Kendra gets on? And this is just Kendra stepping on this horse. We'd never met this lady before. She'd never seen this horse before. And this is what, when we're talking about riding and attunement and what we're going to dive into, you know, in the programs that we offer and teaching you how to do that. The horse is yawning. Yeah, it's obviously relaxed and looks like it's releasing. All right, you ready to see some data that shows the difference in what happens when we're riding and they're comfortable and they feel supported? Ty, if you can pull up, I've got another sheet of data for you. All right, so so if you didn't see the one yesterday, we have a device. It's mounted on the girth of the horse. And I'm so sorry, Sunny, I had asked you to present this. So over to you, Sunny. And for those of you that have never been with the Stall High Science and Data Group, it's headed up by Sunny and Cher. And so we have fun with this, and we've really dove into it. And I love to say geek out. Sunny is a science teacher by trade, and I think she's still at the school right now. So she is having a good time. Is it a basketball game tonight there that's going on that you're been able to join us live from there?
Yes, my husband coaches the girls and I usually do books, and Sherry's like, hey, can you help me? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'd much rather listen to Leanna than score a basketball game. So I am here with you guys. And yes, my background is a science teacher. I absolutely enjoy every bit of the data and looking at all of this. So it looks like on left screen, was that the lady that rode her first and then Kendra rode on the right side?
Well, this is not data on them. This is another scenario, but the left side is where somebody is just riding the way that they've been taught to ride, and then on the right is Kendra riding in with our techniques in our program.
So the thing about our device is it will tell you if you are leaning too far back or if you're sitting center in the saddle. And when we ride an attunement, that's where we want to be. You want to be centered front to back and also right to left. This device is absolutely amazing because I rode with it and I'm like, wow, this device is wrong because there's no way that I am riding that. Like my data was pretty far off. And I'm like, I've been riding all my life. I ride ranch horses. This thing is wrong. And I check it out kind of like Sherry did. And no, I really was riding that far. I was riding really heavy to the right. And I did my body scan the other day and this morning too. And I'm like, I need to go back to the chiropractor because my right hip is off. And this device picks that up, that's why I was riding heavy to the right, is because of my right hip as well. So it really helps you understand where center is for you. So the person that rode on the left, or on the left information, you can see that it was 5.5 degrees to the left. And when Kendra rode, you want to be in that green area. So 1.2 to the right is not too bad because you're still in the green. Obviously, our goal is to have 0 degrees both ways. That would be the absolute perfect goal. And that's what we strive for. But without this, I would not have realized how much that just my right hip being off affects my horse. So I'm just very intrigued by this device and all the information that it can give us.
Sunny, I'm going to interject something real quick because you said I've been riding my whole life. I ride ranch horses. I ride barrel horses. You were already running in the 1D with your Maridati before you even got the device.
Yes.
Because some people might be listening like, oh, that's cute. She's a rancher. Like, they may not really be associating your skill level. So, guys, all of us have room to improve. And that's inside. I saw Linda say, where do we get one of those little black boxes? At Stall High. So you got to start with Attunement 101. You got to get started with the classes. That's why we've built 101, 201, and 301, because we've got some preliminary prerequisite work to do. If y'all are enjoying this week, get ready for the actual classes. Like when you join, you'll get immediate access into the digital clinic library. And Leanna and I are going to be standing there looking at you, waving like, here we go. Here's how you're going to start changing your hip. Here's how to start riding an attunement. And then it goes up, right? It goes to advanced attunement, mastering attunement. Sunny, will you talk a little bit about what it feels like to ride an attunement the first time? Because it is a little, it puts us out of our comfort zone, that's for sure.
It's freeing, I would say. And to watch my horse move so differently and relaxed. And my little horse, when I got her, she was a frazzled mess. And now I could ride. There was, I've got a video, we go and gather cattle on her, and she walks across right behind cattle. I mean, it's no big deal to her. We brought cattle down into a little alleyway. She kept her head down. It got tight. We were 4 horses across. Didn't bother at all. Before attunement, oh, heck no. Nope, I would rather walk than try that on her. So it has been very liberating. It's freeing. It makes me happy, to tell you the truth. It just absolutely makes me happy to know how easy, literally how easy it is once you figure it out.
Yes.
But
and it feels good to them. Like they start to yawn.
Yes.
They start to lower their head. They blink. Their eyes get shiny and soft. They'll start to shake their head. I didn't know what any of that meant, quite frankly, until Michael and Leanna started explaining neurologically what's happening when horses do that. And I was like, well, how can I live my whole life in the saddle and not known these things? It doesn't matter. I want to know them now. Like, tell me more. This was
like,
really good.
You don't get sore. A lot of people, I rode in one of my old saddles one time. We had a set of cows together. I thought, I'll just put my barrel saddle on, go around, gather these cattle. This has been a while ago. I was so sore I couldn't walk from riding that barrel saddle just to gather a small set of cows. And now, shoot, I have a bullseye now, and I would rather ride in my bullseye than my good ranch saddle that I paid a lot of money for. And I have a choice, and I still would rather ride in my bullseye to gather cattle. So, because it is that comfortable, it's wonderful. I can move with my horse. My horse moves a lot better with it. There's not enough good things to say. I have a friend that sat in it, and to watch people's reaction the first time they sit in it, they're like, wow, this is amazing. And they haven't even rode in it. They just sat in it. So it's kind of cool to watch people's reactions as well as the horses' reactions as well.
That's so amazing, Sunny.
So-
Kendra, can I just say something about that? And we'll, as we go through attunement and I guess we'll talk about it tomorrow, like some of the classes we'll have within attunement, is we need to talk about the diaphragm of the pelvis. So as Sunny's talking about how it's more comfortable for her to ride in that saddle, there's a reason. Because again, we have more than one diaphragm. And maybe tomorrow, if it interests anybody, we can talk just briefly about that. Because when you understand you have more than one diaphragm, you can actually send your breath further down and through your body, which opens up even more pathways in parts of the brain to communicate. But when you're riding like Sunny's talking about, it's because she has access to the diaphragm of her pelvis. And that diaphragm in your horse, the horse's diaphragm is a bridge from their hind end to their front. It is a bridge. It bridges us. It's so important to have access to the diaphragm. It's just that, again, certain postures, certain things that hold us in a certain way, it cuts off access to that diaphragm. And again, if we cut off access to the diaphragm, the body's going to go, why is my oxygen level not moving efficiently and effectively? And the brain will go, what's wrong? What's wrong? So again, that's all why it's important to have these kind of conversations. So I just thought that would be interesting.
So who's coming back for day 5 tomorrow?
Oh, come on.
I am.
Friday.
And then Kendra, do you have any closing comments for us? Because we are out of time, ladies.
We have a special guest. I'm fixing to get in the truck with her so y'all can say hi.
Oh, yay! She
Everybody
is,
say hello to Wendy Holman.
who is now a pro card holder.
Yes. Somebody asked the other day, like,
What?
I just want to know which pro racers are like following this program. And I'm like, oh, well, it's wonderful that you asked because, yeah, pretty little lady right here. You
Does
didn't,
that mean Beso's here too?
that means base is in the trailer.
Okay, so
So you didn't have plans of going pro when you joined the program.
no plan at all. That's how wicked fast everything went fast forward for me. I joined the program, thought I'll just see what I can learn, and really started connecting with my horse and communicating with him better, and things just started happening. I was like, wow, this is really cool. So I thought, well, I'll get my permit. Got my permit. 6 months later, had my
Filled
card.
Yeah. So in 15 months, she went from hit or miss 3D.
Oh yeah,
like
3D and something.
inconsistent,
Yeah.
really nice horse,
Train
but
wreck.
just like, I know he could do better. What is it? Is it me? Yes and no, right? We're learning. To 15 months later, you're running in Texas with like NFR girls
Yeah.
and placing at the same pro rodeos. How cool is that? Wendy Ullman, everybody.
And how many
So,
rodeos
yes.
did it take to fill your card or fill your
How many
permit?
rodeos did you go to? How many did it take to fill your card?
4.
4.
That's what I
It
love.
It took
4.
me 4 years. It took me 4 years. She does it in 4 rodeos in less than
Kendra?
6 months.
Kendra, can we say that that's the perfect example of you don't have to do more, you just have to do what matters?
Whoa. Mic drop. Absolutely.
That's the perfect
100%.
example. It took you 4 years. It
Yep.
took you 4 because you didn't do just more and just
She
worked
did what
harder.
matters.
You started focusing on what matters. And
Yep.
that's huge. Yep.
Well, and Leanna, you remember the first pro rodeo I entered on my own, it was a train wreck. And you guys kind of like with Kelly, you coached me through, and because I got in my head, I started looking around thinking, oh, I don't deserve to be here. Oh, this is
Left brain.
Yes. And
then
I recovered
move
and
over.
went to the next 4 rodeos and filled my
Boom.
card. Yeah.
That's it.
Hot dang. And this is good. This is just good stuff.
Well, tomorrow, mañana.
Leanna, we love you.
I
Everybody
love
say
all y'all.
bye.
You're changing the horse world, and I'm proud
We
of
all
everybody
are.
for being here.
Come on.
Absolutely.
We all are.
Amen.
Mm.
All right.